Hello and welcome to Frank's School. The next video, the 2, is going to be a field trip. I'm going to go to another farm that my wife and I own and show you something. And when I was filming that, I realized I could probably do some explaining. But first of all, I've got 2 guests of honor here. Here's my hammer. I actually think of this as Excalibur. It's my name for it. It's kind of the one and only. I've had it pretty much all my life. I can keep it in my back pocket. Excalibur. I brought him, but here is really the one at the moment. This is the prime guest of honor at the moment. Don't really have a name for him because periodically I'll break a handle or wear one out, a shovel. There's even a medieval debate. At the moment you probably have no idea why I'm doing this, but there's a medieval debate which I heard about once but have never been able to find. I think it's in verse. And it's a debate between the pickaxe and the shovel, the spade, over who was the more powerful. I would love to find that. If anybody watching this can find that for me and let me know, please. I don't know who won the debate. I would be inclined to think the spade, but I don't know. But I'd like to read it. And speaking about medieval times, well, you're going to hear me use the word glebe quite a bit. Glebe is unknown in the English language anymore. When I looked it up, it was archaic. Archaic, meaning it's not used anymore. And what does it mean? Well, the oldest use was a piece of ground, like a plot of ground. But it comes from Old French. It appeared about 1302, I think, in writing. And it came out of Latin. I should have these underlined because this is not the English. That would be in italics. That's not an English word. And this is not an English word either. And I don't give a definition because they both meant the same thing. Or, well, maybe I should have. In Latin, it was a lump of ground, a clod. And that's the way it was used back around the 14th century, when the kind of gardening that I'm going to show you was the norm. But as I say that, it's changed so much and it's been lost. You're going to hear me use the word hatch. Well, a hatch is like a valve, although it's just water and dirt, if you will. But really, that's what it is. It's a valve, and I mentioned that. I also mentioned the word açude. Now, açude is Portuguese. Açude, I think, is the way you'd say it in Spanish. It's spelled the same except without that. It's the breast, it's a dam. But in Brazil, where I was, an açude was the pond and everything. And all right, now draining and irrigating become the same thing. With this system, and you'll see that. I can irrigate. Well, it began in a position of draining. As it rains, that water is carried off. But then I shifted over to irrigating, and then I shifted back to draining. The water, I think I failed to mention, maybe I mentioned it, it comes from a spring. That the road was built right over the spring. And incidentally, that spring is said to be the site of the oldest permanent settlement in western Pennsylvania. Permanent, because the settlers didn't leave. When the French and Indian War came, they stayed there, and that spring is historic, but it was covered right over by the road. Of course, the spring doesn't stop just because you cover it over. The water keeps coming. All right, no transit was involved. You know, to get a perfect contour line in a field, you don't need a transit. All you need is a source of water and a spade. Well, actually, you could do it in stone. Actually, if you chip the stone out. And I show the process. As long as you make something the water will come into, but not run out of, well, then you've maintained level. So there's no transit needed. Still water equals level. If you open a hatch, then you've got the water will then go to a fall line. Now it may be very, very level, or it could be almost like a waterfall, like an open pipe. And there, water wants to go to plumb. And if you take level and plumb together, the two of them make a square. They make the concept of square. I find myself thinking of the the Masons, Order of Masons, and I think they had some saying like, we met on the level and departed on the square, or something like that. I've heard it, but they don't say anything about straight. I should have put this in here. Straight is also very important. Straight is important, but if you want to get straight, you just take a piece of fiber and pull it tight, and then you've got straight. So straight, level, plumb, square, all of those available to cavemen. All right, I mentioned kilocalories as currency. Yes, I absolutely should say that. That is one of the subjects all year in this course. I suppose, I'm guessing that it took me about 5 man-hours to do what you saw there. I didn't count it, but I was guessing that. And I recently heard in that interview with Jeremy Grantham that there are 250 man-hours per gallon of gasoline. That was his figure, but I believe it. Well, keep that in mind when you think that. Oh, another thing I didn't put in here, I didn't put in here garden tractor. What the rest of the neighborhood will do when it's time to put their gardens out is they'll get on a garden tractor and they'll plow it up, and then they'll get the same garden tractor and they'll ride around with something to a harrow to break that up, and they'll wait till it's dry because they can't get on the fields when it's wet. Their machine's too heavy, and they might use a rototiller. Well, they probably will. Well, think of the gasoline involved in all that, and in the manufacture of that garden tractor. I mean, there was a certain amount of kilocalories involved in the manufacture of this, to be sure. But compare that to the manufacture of a garden tractor, or bigger tractor, or a rototiller. If I continue to work there, I will borrow or rent a rototiller to go along and break those glebes up, because it's never been, they need to be, it's the first time. A second time, I don't think I'd have to do that. And I'll wait till it's dry, of course. There's no pump. With the system that you'll see there, that requires no pump to irrigate or to drain. One of my neighbors has got a pump that he's been running for, I think maybe 2 or 3 years whenever it gets too wet, because a drain is blocked, that the water would simply run out if he'd unblock the drain. But no, he has a pump out there, and night and day it's trying to pump the water out. But anyway, that's not what you usually do. Usually when the garden gets dry, you use the pump in the house and take a hose and stand there and water your plants. Or if it's too wet, well then that wouldn't happen in a garden much, but in a basement you use a pump to pump it out. And with them come a motor, of course. Oh, and I didn't write this. Yeah, for example, the neighbor. Another neighbor of mine, I saw him, it didn't work, but I saw him trying to save his garden at one point by taking his tractor down to the edge of the creek, real near to where I was, running the tractor, and off the power takeoff on the back of the tractor, running a pump to pump the water out of the creek up into his garden. Well, maybe it worked. I don't know if it saved his garden or not. But in the driest of times, he went to where there was still water. Well, of course, with the system you're going to see, long before it gets dry, you use the ground as a sponge. Now, when the water stops completely, you can't irrigate anymore. But then you've maybe gained a month, and the water still has, or the soil still has a sort of memory of water. So anyway, you need a pump with a motor and a hose and time. And time. You go out there and water your garden. All right, finally here, children playing brings civilization. In a way, what you saw me doing, if you were ever a kid and built a little dam in a creek, I hope you have. You really missed something if you never did that. Kids love to do it. Adults do too. You go out and wade there with stones, you build a little dam. Well, I can see the beginning of civilization there. And I have to reference this video. There is a hydraulic theory about the development of civilization, and it's been quite a popular video in Frank's school. The difference, of course, is that then you carry it on further. You don't just play there and see how deep you can make the water. No, you start off and you carry that water out. I mean, this is a very long, big subject of mine. Like beavers, you know, I thought of, do we owe civilization to beavers? Well, not really, because they also have that impulse to dam something up, but they want to make a dam. Well, it's just different in that I didn't make any dams. All I did was just make what's called in French a prise d'eau, a water trap, and just send it off, or a valve. If you look at the video, you'll understand this. Now, in Spain, near Zaragoza, last year in the Tour d'Europe, I saw out the train enough evidence of a Spanish understanding of what I do. And you don't see a lot of it, because my camera had lost power or memory or something the day before, where I saw lots of it. So on the train coming from Sevilla or Cordoba to Zaragoza, as you're going south of Madrid I should say, all of a sudden I saw it everywhere, and I got so excited, and my camera was not ready. But anyway, you can see some of it in the video 2.46.1. I think I might explain it there, and 2.46.2, and there I think is where you'll briefly see it. Also, the Swiss bisses, which I've talked about so much. In videos 2.52.2 and 2.53.2, you can see something similar. But the bisses weren't dead level. The bisses, their job was never really to drain, it was to carry water. But they're so close to level that it seems almost like they are level. Okay, and finally, Minho. Minho is in Portugal, and it's one of my principal destinations in my trip that's coming up in a month and a half. But I was there last year, and in video 2.26.1 and 2, I think I talk about and then show you my excitement at seeing the way those farms were plowed and the virtual gardens that I saw. Now there was enough water, I think, almost always in Minho. I don't think it has a dry spell, I'm not sure. So drainage is maybe a bigger problem than irrigating, but you can do both. And I'll be going back, and I'm going to be looking close to see about that. Well, that's a lot. I hope you do look at the next video. I really wish gardeners would look at that. It's a joy. Oh, but it's an entirely different paradigm. That's the problem with the neighbors and people who do not understand. It's a different way of thinking. And in some ways it can almost be threatening. I think I'll title this Level versus Straight. And my work was level. It's a fun subject for me, and again, I really hope you look at the other video, and I hope it catches some gardeners' attention, because they're liable to do things very differently and really enjoy what they can do. See you next time.